All right, we are live on the 12 Puzzles podcast. I don't know why that thing says 17 seconds, like I just clicked the button. Um, we're doing St. Augustine, a September puzzle. We have Douglas in New York, Mark, that's close to me. You're in the St. Augustine area, right, Mark?
Ponte Vedra.
Ponte Vedra? Okay. Oh man, you're a lot closer to me than I thought. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm right off Jacksonville Beach, so we're pretty much neighbors.
Yeah, we are.
So it's Mark's first appearance on the podcast. Douglas has been here before.
Yep.
And later, we're probably going to have some more people jump in here. So, where you guys want to start? We're talking St. Augustine.
Hey, where do you think it is, Mark?
Well, I'm not here to talk about where I believe the cask is buried.
Okay.
I'd really like to talk about the kinds of clues that have led me to where I believe it is. And I don't think we spend enough time talking about what I call clue types. And so I'm just gonna throw this one out there. The very first line in the verse says the first chapter. And we all know this refers to the entrance to the fountain of youth. And I would agree with that. But the word chapter implies a book. And there are lots of books that can apply to this puzzle. And so there is another, well, the very end of the very last verse starts with years pass. So I'm going to combine the first chapter with years pass. For me, years pass means two things. January 1st, a year has passed and we're on to New Year, and anniversaries. And in St. Augustine, anniversaries are king. And so let's talk about what years past means relative to the first chapter. And I'm going to show you this book right here. This book, along with this book and this book, all three of these books were written in either 1964 or 1965. Actually, there's another book I don't have here. There's four books that were written in either 64 or 65, all in preparation for the quadricentennial celebration of St. Augustine, the 400th anniversary. So there's years pass. And the reason why this book is so critical is because it's really small. This book was written for kids and us. And in this book, the gentleman who wrote this book was at the time the St. Augustine historian. He was actually the head of the St. Augustine Historical Society. His name was Albert Manussi. And he does a day-by-day telling of the days that led up to the founding of St. Augustine, all the way from Pedro's departure from Cadiz on June 29th, 1565, him leaving San Juan, Puerto Rico on August 15th. Then they go through the Bahamas for reasons, and they cite Cape Canaveral on August 28th. And then he chronicles what happens in the days after that, the 2nd, the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th, the 6th, the 7th, and the 8th. All those days are chronicled in this book. And like I said, it's not a very big book, so anybody can read this. And you can still buy this book. You can buy this book on Amazon. You can buy it at the...
what's it called?
It's called Florida's Menendez.
Yeah, I seen that book today when I was someone was talking about Don Quixote. I remember that book popped up.
Right.
As part of the search.
So
I believe in that.
So,
okay.
So if you want to find out a very concise, very simple version of the history of St. Augustine, this is your book. However, the real book is this one, Cross in the Sand. And this book is also for sale at the Mission and on Amazon. Yeah. And the first chapter of this book tells you what you really want to know about the founding story of St. Augustine. And he actually says, in fact, just bear with me for a moment. I'm just going to read this one.
And that's also why this puzzle is September. People need to get away from Ponce de Leon and look at who they really should be looking at.
Hang on. You're stealing my thunder here, buddy. So
Right.
here's
Okay, I'll hit my mute
the
button.
first chapter. So see that one right there? That means the first chapters. And I'm going to read the first paragraph and then the first sentence after that. It says, "Thanks be to thee, O Lord, who has permitted me to see something new. So spoke once Ponce de Leon on first sighting the island. The year was 1513, and the land was fragrant with tropical flowers. It was Easter time, Pascua Florida, Easter of the flowers, and a name for this land came naturally to the Spaniards' mind. During the next 100 years, the name La Florida would identify for Spaniards not only the present peninsula of Florida, but the entire American continental territory extending north to Newfoundland, and westward indefinitely Atlantic." Okay, and then the very next, when I read this next sentence, I about fell out of my chair. It said, "Ponce's voyage of discovery in 1513 was not a chapter in Catholic history." And that's what St. Augustine is all about, is Catholic history. I know there's lots of people out there that say Byron was Jewish and he would never talk about Roman Catholicism. For me, that's just nonsense.
That is nonsense.
So the rest of this first chapter talks about all the people who came after Ponce and before Pedro, including Ponce. And so Ponce in 1521. And then the second chapter is really the first chapter of the founding of St. Augustine. And that's the story that begins with Pedro coming to La Florida and he founds St. Augustine. So that's kind of this book right here really is for me the clue of the first chapter, which identifies Pedro Menendez, not Ponce de Leon. I mean, most of us know that the whole Ponce de Leon Fountain of Youth story is legend at best.
It's folklore,
right?
Yeah.
Right. So
and they weren't that stupid even back then. I believe that there was an all-giving fountain of youth.
Well,
I don't believe explorers were.
It was it was the whole story made up by Diamond Luella de McConnell. And so when you go to the Fountain of Youth, where we see silver limestone or shell limestone, silver salt, that whole clue right there is about where the 15 by 13 coquina stones are, which are in the shape of a cross. Shell and the limestone are the coquina stones, and the silver salt is the silver salt cellar, where she claims there was a royal affidavit stuffed into that little tiny salt cellar. That's what they used to transport salt across the ocean. And she laid claim that was there on her property. The problem with that whole story is that coquina wasn't found until about 100 years, maybe not quite that long, 100 years after 1513. So the whole idea that there are these nicely cut coquina stones in the shape of a cross is just kind of silly. It just is.
Yeah.
Well, that area also, the building material, they had to do what they had to do. I mean, that it wasn't. It wouldn't take you long to go through all the trees and everything else. So that was just people making use of what was around. But yeah, those are major clues. There's still a lot of people that don't think it's St. Augustine. That's a lot of the following Ponce de Leon around and there's specific, and with the stuff you're talking, Mendez direct connections to Seloy, the Timucuanan tribe. It's like,
that's right.
That's all St. Augustine. You got a trifecta right there with just
Exactly.
The Indian tribe, the chief, and the Spanish explorer. It's not going to take you anywhere but St. Augustine.
So
I don't even know where that. I mean, I understand, like, they're following Ponce de Leon to Tampa, because that's where he was wounded before he died. But
no, it wasn't. He wasn't in Tampa. He was.
wasn't?
No, he was in Southwest Florida in what's called Charlotte Harbor now. That's where the Calusa attacked.
Oh, okay, yeah.
The
In the wrong spot with that.
the Tocobaga were in Tampa, and somebody posted a couple of months or maybe a year ago that. So this is a Tampa supporting clue. They said that they found a canoe that was used by Pedro Menendez in 1634 or something like that. And to that, I replied, "Do you know that Pedro Menendez died in 1574, like 50 years before that thing that you think is the clue?" So,
yeah.
So,
Well, what did he do? Scratch his
He
name?
found the town to use.
so
He left his wallet in the canoe.
I appreciate you letting me share that. But here's something else that I think most people miss. Pedro, in the 3.5 months from the time he left Cadiz until he executed Jean Ribault, he did his major milestones, and I could quickly tell you what they are, but I really don't need to, on important Roman Catholic feast days. So most people don't know this story, but when Pedro arrived to the Good Harbor, that's what the King of Spain told him to find a good harbor and create a presidio or a settlement there. So as he's going up the coast looking for the French at Fort Caroline, he sees the inlet, which we now call the St. Augustine Inlet, and he says to his brother-in-law, whose name is Gonzalo Solis de Maris, the guy that wrote this book, he said to his brother-in-law, when we're done with the French, we're going to come back to that good harbor and we're going to call it San Agustin. And why did he say that? Because he saw Florida for the first time at Cape Canaveral on August 28th, the Feast of St. Augustine. So he does his brief skirmish with the French on September 4th. Again, all this is in this little tiny book. I don't know where it went, but it's here someplace. So he dealt with the French briefly on September 24th, on the 4th. On the 5th, he decided to go back to the Good Harbor, and he arrived on the 6th. And on the 6th, he sent 102 soldiers to what amounted to the village of Saloy. And that's where the whole Saloy thing comes in. But only 102 soldiers, 2 companies of 50 soldiers plus their captains. And they spent that first day and the second day fortifying a community building. On the 7th, he sent most of the rest of the people, including Father Lopez, and Father Lopez had some of the soldiers build him a palm log altar for when Pedro landed the next day. So here's the big clue. Why did Pedro wait to land until September 8th? Do you know?
Phyllis.
Probably seen him that forward team he sent got slaughtered.
No.
Or no, was there another reason for that?
No, in fact, from the time he left San Juan, Puerto Rico, until he executed Juan Ribault, no Spanish soldiers lost their lives. There was one injury, but no Spanish soldiers lost their lives. And he wiped out all of the French except the ones that got away at the fort and some that got away down at the Matanzas Inlet. So he waited because he wanted to honor Mary, the Mother of God, on the day he founded his new settlement. So September 8th is called the Feast of the Nativity of the Blessed Virgin. And if you look at all the founding paintings that are in books and on cathedrals and wherever, you'll see a flag that always has Mary. It's got Mary's logo on it. Mary's carrying the baby. And so he and Father Lopez had this real devotion to the Mother of God, and he waited to do the founding on her day. It's called Mary's Day. That's why he waited. That's why it's September 8th.
Really? You're a lot deeper than that than I ever got. But yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot of information in one place.
Somewhere around the Foy, I'm thinking, man. Somewhere around the Fountain of Youth, right?
Well, all right. So here's something else that I'll say. I don't believe there's a single word, phrase, or line in the verse or a single image in the painting that's a dig here clue. I don't think that there's any. I think those two elements, the verse and the painting, give you clues to go find what I kind of half jokingly call Easter eggs. You go find the Easter eggs, you open them up, and in those eggs are the clues that lead you to the cask. So, do I believe it's that the cask is buried at the Foy? No, but there's a huge number of clues at the Foy. Do I believe it's buried at the Mission? No, it's a sacred place. It's a cemetery. I don't believe it's there, but there's lots of clues there. There's lots of clues at the National Cemetery. Is it buried there? No, it's a cemetery. All those are cemeteries, but they all contain clues, and lots of them.
That's true. And you need the book, and a lot of that initial, like pretty much everything you just talked about. That's why the Spanish ferries set for St. Augustine.
So I'm curious. There's only one fair person that is listed as coming from the Iberian Peninsula. There aren't any others. There's not one that says that they're coming from Spain. But when you say Iberia, that's as good as saying Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
So I'm curious.
What
do you all think Mira Chimera means? And by the way, what's her complete name in the book?
I don't know. I've never even come across that.
Yeah, tell us.
Mira Chimera, and then in parentheses, on the wall.
Oh.
It's in big bold letters.
I have never went through that story. I can tell you that right now.
Well,
I've scanned it, but I've never detailed.
I can tell you there's lots of clues to the St. Augustine puzzle on that page. And the name is the most critical one. Mira Chimera on the wall is a reference to a shrine at the Mission called the Shrine of Our Lady of Guadalupe. And if you are Latino and you're anywhere from 10 years old to 100 years old, you know that story. And when you go to the Mission and you see her shrine and you're a secret person, you're going to go, wow, there's a lot of symbology in that shrine. And when you research the story, you can understand why Byron used that shrine in this puzzle, and he absolutely did.
Okay.
Okay.
And that would be another clue. And that's something, because see, a lot of people are going to immediately look at that, because I haven't done, but it says Greek, Old World, California, New York. But we already know California is connected to the Werner von Browning, which is Florida, Texas, and California. So that's why you need the book. One of the biggest reasons why you need the book. And that's just another clue that Mark just described that would put you right in St. Augustine.
And
that's very interesting, because you're going to make me look all that up now.
And Werner von Browning is 100% St. Augustine. There's
Yep.
so many clues in there that tell you. See, what Byron's has us doing, and I learned this a year and a half ago. I've done my share of probing and digging, all with permission, but it was still a high stress affair for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I mean, we've all experienced that, and something happened. I don't need to explain what happened, but I had an experience, and that experience said, "All right, stop looking for the cask," meaning stop probing and digging for the cask, because even though I thought I had a good idea where it was, I knew that I only had solved half the puzzle. So I made a commitment to just say, I'm going to start looking for the rest of the clues, and what I've learned is astounding. And so I think what Byron has us doing is looking at the complete history of St. Augustine, not just the 1565 immigration story, because there's several immigration stories in St. Augustine. As you can imagine, it's the oldest city in America. And for instance, in 1777 is when the Menorcans showed up. And the Menorcans are the predominant community of people still in St. Augustine. And if you don't know that story, you're missing out a ton. You're missing out a ton. Another immigration story is the Germans. Eric, this is for you. Do you know what Operation Paperclip is?
Yes.
What is it?
I don't remember, but I do remember reading about it.
So
I heard about that.
So
recently.
Operation Paperclip it's kind of a fun story. Von Braun, he saw the writing on the wall. He saw that the Nazis were done.
Me?
And he said, he said, we need to give ourselves up to the Americans, because if we don't, we could fall into the hands of the Soviets.
Right. Russia.
So he found an American regiment and had his brother go talk to them and say, we want to surrender to you tomorrow. And so they did. And there were hundreds of them. And through negotiations, von Braun said, I want to send 600 of my Germans to America with you. And the Americans said, we can't take that many. So what they did is they put together portfolios on all 600, and von Braun and an American general, I think it was a general, they took all of these portfolios, and on the ones where they decided were candidates to go, they would put a paperclip on their portfolio and set it aside. And that's the reason why they called it Operation Paperclip. So I've been looking in the von Brownie page for an image that looks like a paperclip, and I can't find it. And a couple weeks ago, I figured out why. Because Operation Paperclip was kept top secret until about the year 2000. But on the von Brownie page, there's very clearly an image of a crossbow and a water serpent, which is called a Hydra. And those are references to Operation Hydra and Operation Crossbow. And that was the Allies' attempt to destroy the German vengeance weapons. And the V2, the most powerful of all of them, was designed by Werner von Braun. Yep. And if you'll notice, he's got his fingers in his ears, and his ears are shaped like wings. And I made a post about this on your page, Eric. And that is a description of what happened on the night that the British Air Force bombed Peenemünde. And Peenemünde was the forerunner to Cape Canaveral. And Peenemünde is in the same shape as Anastasia Island. If you look at the two of them side by side, they look almost identical.
Yep.
And There's an image in the
Still
painting.
visit that place today.
So, and that story about Operation Hydra and Operation Crossbow leads you to learn about Operation Magpie, which was the German attempt to bomb New York City with one of their vengeance weapons, using U-boats to ferry them across the Atlantic. And the U.S. Navy's response to Operation Magpie was Operation Teardrop.
And everybody watching out there, notice the connection to World War II. There's
Exactly.
more than one. And
Yep.
this is why the St. Augustine, but what I've always told people is, the book says you need the fairies in twos or pairs. And the Werner von Braun story, he is the brownie. The brownie in the illustration even looks like him. It's telling you to bring the German fairy to St. Augustine. Part of that is going to be Henry Flagler, because he's the one with the railroad put St. Augustine on the map as a tourist trap. It's still what it is today. Just because of events, history, the oldest of everything.
It would probably have gotten that way anyway, because we're in Florida. But let me just finish up these operations. So Operation Teardrop was the Navy's attempt to thwart the Germans' Operation Magpie. The Germans actually abandoned the whole idea because they really couldn't get those weapons across the ocean successfully. But the Navy didn't know that. And the only casualty in Operation Teardrop was the destroyer called the Frederick C. Davis. And a German U-boat got it, and it went down in the North Atlantic Ocean, not too terribly far from the Titanic. So there's the iceberg in the lower right-hand corner, or the mountain, however you want to describe it. It's the rock in the lower right-hand corner is a whole bunch of different things, and one of them is an iceberg. And the Titanic and the Frederick C. Davis went down fairly close to each other, not exactly, but fairly close to each other. And the whole reason for that particular story is because of a young man that was killed aboard that ship. His name was Russell Bagby Palms. And his body was never recovered. It's at the bottom of the ocean. And his memorial is on the back of his brother's tombstone at the National Cemetery. And his brother's name was Jerry F. Palms. And just the other day, somebody posted on your site the palm tree and says, I see some letters in it. They say you got to turn it upside down and backwards and whatever. And I see letters. I don't quite know what it means. But the letters that can be seen easily are the letters J and F. Jerry F. They're in the palm tree. Jerry F. Palms. And then directly below the palm tree, all the way down at the bottom of the painting, is JJP's initials. JJP. P for palms. P for pound car. And when you look at the J and the J, so if you turn the painting this way or the other way, the J and J turn into an R and a B. Clearly it's an R, and because of the way that the thing that sweeps down like this is rendered, it swoops to the left, and it looks like it could be a B. So that's RB Palms, and his initials appear to be at the bottom of the ocean, just like Russell is. And when you go to their tombstone, there's a ton of information on it that Byron uses to help us locate helps me locate the cask.
And that barrel, his brother is buried in St. Augustine.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Jerry. So Russell died on April 24th, 1945, just 2 weeks before the end of the war.
That sucks.
So he went down. He went down in a ship on April 24th. His brother died the very next day in Germany, leading his troops across the Danube River. He got up on top of a bombed out German tank, and a mortar exploded close to him. It killed him. And he was awarded Purple Heart and all kinds of stuff. But both of them were decorated. And to finish this story, Stars Move by Day, Even in Darkness, is the story of their mother, and her name is Golda Palms, and she was given the honor of turning on the lights on the flagstaff at the National Cemetery 30 years after they died.
And what was that in 75?
75.
No, was it?
1975, August
Yeah.
26th.
So the light's been on permanently nonstop since 75.
Well, they turn them off during the day, but they come back on at night. So Stars Move by Day, Even in Darkness, that means several things, but one of them is the story of the lighting of the flagstaff at the National Cemetery in St. Augustine in 1975. St. Augustine was one of 10 national cemeteries that was chosen of all the national cemeteries to have their flagstaff lit at night. And the ceremony where Golda flipped the switch was the only one of the 10 that occurred at night. So you actually got to see the flag light up.
That's cool. Yeah, and I already hear. We got one question, but if everyone knows. Hey, Mark, was that research easy? No.
It doesn't sound easy.
Well, it actually was. It's on their website. It's on the National Cemetery website, and if you go to the barracks, they would tell you that story because it's one of the prominent stories of the National Cemetery. The National Cemetery is filled with amazing stories, and several of them are used by Byron.
Yep. And you see how this story connected to von Braun in Germany, World War II, connects right back to St. Augustine, even with visuals. And that's exactly how you're supposed to make the connections. And a lot of these connections, it's not, instead of saying someone's name, it's imagery. It's initials. It's the history that you got to know. Byron said it's easy. Nothing's easy. It's easy for Mark to explain because he's done the research, but it's not going to be easy for someone that has not done it. So these are the steps that you do have to take to make a connection.
So
in St. Augustine.
I'd been doing the puzzle for a year before I learned that there was a place in St. Augustine called Lincolnville. I had no idea.
Oh yeah, I'm over in Lincolnville all the time.
As am I now, and then I saw
neighborhood name.
Huh?
It's an old neighborhood name.
Well, the original name was Buena Esperanza, Good Hope, and then it changed after the Emancipation Proclamation. It changed to Africa or Little Africa, and 5 years after Lincoln was assassinated, the folks who lived there wanted to rename it to Lincolnville. So they did that in 1870.
Someone asked a question and says, they asked us at 7:35 p.m. I guess is when we were talking about the Fountain of Youth. It said that would mean that 80% of the painting would be a red herring if it's not Fountain of Youth, because the entire rock is in the shape of the backside of the park. I think it's highly unlikely. My opinion, Fountain of Youth, historical connections, there's no box there. Even John Fraser has said there's not a box there. And they have the whole place. Plus, it's private property. We had that discussion today on the page.
And it's
Bennett, the Fountain of Youth in '83, even when the book came out, would have never let you come in there to dig. There's no reason Byron would have put it in there. And if you broke in there at night, you'd get arrested. And Ben Asen said Byron would have never went into a place where he knew you were going to have to break in.
Right.
He wouldn't jump a fence and do anything illegal. No private property, no fort, no. The amphitheater at one time, that place was a no-no too, because that's a private property. Even the park.
He has too much respect for the places in America that people cherish. So he wouldn't do that.
I mean, there's been three public parks so far. That's what you're looking for.
Hey, Mark is coming. Said he's coming in like 5-10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to let you know.
But appreciate that, Mark. That's a lot of good information. I love when I hear stuff that I haven't even gotten into yet. But that's very. Next time I'm in St. Augustine, I will be going down there and looking over some of that stuff. I get down there about once a week, but.
So Eric, where do you think around about where it's at?
I think it's at the plaza.
Mm-hmm.
The German also can. Someone asked me today to explain this. So you have stories in the back of the book that are going to tell you Florida. There's two. You got the Garden Goyle, which is Florida, Nebraska. And then you got the Von Brownie that Mark was discussing earlier that has Florida, Texas, California. Those are your two starting stories. But once you make that connection to the Von Brownie is Von Braun, and that's exactly who Byron was hiding there, and you figure out that it's not in Cape Canaveral because that's the NASA facility, and you can jump that fence if you want to get shot, even back in '83. So what you're doing is you're taking that ferry of Germany to St. Augustine now in the book, because what you need in the book to solve St. Augustine is you need the Spanish stories, all the German stories, even if they don't list Florida. There's a clue in the German stories contain clues of, Roanoke, St. Augustine, New York, and Milwaukee. And if Germany is the third or fourth ferry of the second pair of any other painting, any other city. I think as they go on, you require more ferries. But that's basically when you get into the Germans, part of that is you're looking with some of the puzzles is you're looking for a prominent German. And I think this is why he hid St. Augustine in the German, its actual location, because, and the location is also Spanish too. So, it can play into it. But to put your finger on the spot, I know a guy, he thinks it's at the Spanish Gardens. Today it's private property. When the book came out, it was public. But if you go in there, and I've been there, there's a little bit of imagery, but nothing fits. There's nothing else.
Is there a charge to go in there?
Do what?
You can't get in.
Admission? No, you can't get in at all.
No, it's locked. It's always locked. I've never been. I've walked past it a million times. I've never been in.
Yeah, nobody goes there.
Times. Last two times I went, it was during the day, and the gates were locked. I know they just did renovations, but I don't know. They might have locked that permanently because of the secret.
Well, they might
have.
have.
And go, hey, y'all have some damage that occur over here? Like, yeah, we ain't opening them damn gates. The guy, he's here local, and he said it's private. He was trying to get permission, but the area he thought it was in was, they renovated it. So it was like in this area, they didn't want anybody digging. And
nobody does.
Yeah. I mean, Byron did them backwards. So a lot of these things, once you get there, you realize that. But like everything we just learned that Mark talked about, you are going to learn stuff like that that's going to make connections. Now, are they local stories? Is it a World War story? That topic and subtopics that, but when that stuff comes right, that's why I mentioned to Mark there. Like I think me and Mark discussed this a while back, but I was like, and where's that guy buried? St. Augustine, Florida. it really narrows it down. If people really look at this like, hey, you're looking at parks. You know, some of these cities don't have a lot of parks. Some of these cities, they got a whole buttload of them. There's no way you're going through all of them.
No.
Yeah. And old parks, and they're all full of stuff: statues, monuments, obelisks, lakes. You know, a lot of then you got to do that research to see, like, you know, is this place like it was when Byron was here? There's some places like in Charleston, Hampton
Hey,
Park.
Mark said he's here.
Nothing. No, there's Mark.
Yep.
I'm gonna let him stew there for a minute. He's eating again. He's eating
Patriot
again.
Point sucks.
Oh, he can hear me. Hang on.
I'm sinking that boat tonight.
What's up, y'all?
All
What's
right,
up, man?
what's up? We got Douglas. We
Hey,
got Mark in St. August, or Mark in
Ponte
he's
Vedra.
in St. Johns County. We'll just say like that. I don't want to give anybody areas where
I'm
they
sorry,
really-
Mark, where are you at?
Ponte Vedra. About 20 miles
that-
north of St. Augustine.
Okay.
They're up the coast.
And he's about 5 minutes
Okay.
from me. I didn't even know.
Yeah,
Oh,
we're
wow.
fairly
Close
close.
to me. I'm down in
Okay.
Ponte Vedra almost every day. But
So nice
you know,
to be in
you
a city
gotta-
where you have access to everything. Right?
yeah.
We do.
Yeah, we're not. I'm about 45 minutes from St. Augustine, but you get there real quick on A1A. It
Yeah.
goes A1A goes down through Ponte Vedra, and that's St. Johns County. You leave Duval where I'm at, and you hit the what is that little area called right at the end of A1A? And then you cross the
Milano.
bridge. Yeah,
Milano.
Milano Beach, and when you hit the bridge, you can look over. You can see downtown St. Augustine, the Fountain of Youth, the Great Cross, all that. So you can get
It's a
there.
cool town, man. St. Aug's, it's a really awesome Florida city.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff off the beaten path there that people don't even. I mean, they get up there on St. George Street, and it's like you could just walk that way. I mean, they do cemetery tours, ghost tours, Oglethorpe Park's on the other side across the bridge. There's all kinds of stuff down there you could see. You just gotta,
Yeah.
State Park, the beaches over there, the fishing,
cool.
tourism comes there. There's a whole bunch of stuff you can do.
Here's a little piece of history or information for you. If you look at your Maps app, it says historic St. Augustine is the area where St. George Street is, where all the shops are and where the Castillo is. But that's not really historic St. Augustine. Historic St. Augustine is south of King Street, south of the plaza.
Hey, Mark, I want to
No.
know where you think is in St. Augustine. Other Mark, new Mark.
Newmark.
You
Yeah,
guys
new
know.
Mark.
Yeah, that's a piece of information that I'll keep.
Teddy Roosevelt is not in St. Augustine.
Well, yeah. So Teddy was no. No, I think so. This is the way my mind works. It may be totally wrong. Oh,
Sorry. Go ahead.
what the hell was that? Was that the buzzer? If you say something bad, that's what you hear.
No, that was a car honking.
Okay,
That's in the
here's
verse.
my thing, right? Is like, I think being able to solve these things requires you. Okay, I've got chips to play. Okay, and where am I going to place my chips? And so one of the things, and I'm guessing people get sick of me saying this. They probably get sick of me saying a lot of stuff. But, image matches, right? Image matches are very dangerous because it's like looking into a cloud, right? So I don't like to put a lot of chips on image matches. However, with a big asterisk for St. Augustine particularly, what has to be solved there is the flag. Okay. Now, as a little bit of background, I was an artist. When I went to college, I studied fine arts, design, drawing, painting, all that stuff. So I've got training that I think helps me decipher these, or at least think about the paintings as the artist might have. Okay. Maybe I suck at that and I'm no good and I'm just imagining this. I don't know, but I think it does help me. So when I see something as prominent as the flag in St. Aug, Alarm bells are going off. So it's not a flag like off to the side at the bottom. It is right there. It's aside from the conquistador, it's probably the most prominent thing in the painting. It's all by itself sitting on it. So gosh, so I'm putting chips on that. I'm putting chips on it because Byron's or JJP is telling me this thing is important. It's putting it right in the middle.
I agree.
And it's so prominent. So you must, in my opinion, have a good answer for that flag. Okay. Now, some people, I think you guys know, I think it's the road into Anastasia. And there's quite a few things in the verse that could very well lead you into Anastasia as well. However, you know, people like to say, well, I think it's the river. And I think the river is a very good fit. The problem is when you look at the flag, it's not organic. It has these sharp angles in it. As an artist, that's extraordinarily intentional. That's not just him like, oh, I'm trying to make a flag. A flag
It's like an edge overlay.
Yeah,
Probably.
flag blowing in the wind is very organic. He could very easily have represented the flag organically, like you would actually see it. Instead, he puts these various angles in it. So that would negate, I think, that would be a mismatch to a river. Rivers don't have these sharp angles unless you're talking like a man-made canal or something. And even then, it's not going to have angles. So
I mean, what if he had manipulated it? Don't make it exactly like the river. See, that's the thing about Palancar. Plus
Palancar, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? And how would we know he's representing the river, but he's making it angled like that? That doesn't quite. I see where you're going with it. It just doesn't have.
River, you would make it with the river. You would make it like a lightning bolt, but it's exactly like the river. I mean, no one's going to know the shape of the river until they actually look at a map. Like,
well,
so there'd be
the only thing I would challenge you on is
that.
So the challenge there would be, does he need to do that to hide it, and why not do it? Like, what would be the rationale to make it now with all these panels and angles? I really don't know. We don't know. However, I read that as it's man-made. So when you look at various things in the painting as well, when you see angles like coming together like that, that's a man-made structure. And he shows that a lot. So what I infer from this is it's a man-made shape, okay? But this is one where I do think you need a good explanation for the flag. Whether or not it's the road into Anastasia, I happen to think it is, and I think it's probably near or was near the end of the flag. But if you don't have a good explanation for that, then I think you are probably wrong, because JJP is telling us this thing is super important. So that's where you put a lot of chips on it. If you can figure that out, and that's why I think this is one you can hijack. I think you can, if you find that image fits for this one in particular, there's a good chance that you're on the right track. If you don't have a good answer for the flag, I don't know how you can be right.
It took me forever to come up with that. I think
I have an answer for it, and what you're highlighting, Mark, is 100% true. Those sharp angles mean something very specific, and the problem is I can't tell you what they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
But I'll give you a clue. I'll give you a clue about that one. Remember the one part that looks like it's a 90-degree angle?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's telling me that we need to pay attention to directions on a windrose that are 45-degree angles. And here's another clue that backs that up. The whole craziness about the Castillo being blocked out by the purple circle. Okay?
Yeah.
Right? Well, he didn't block out the entire thing. What did he leave unblocked out?
Pointers.
Was it the middle?
The corner directional pointers.
They're called the bastions. and the bastions all point in ordinal directions, not cardinal, north, south, east, and west, but ordinal. And ordinal directions are very critical clues when finding the cask. And that 90-degree shape that Mark is calling out is a very critical clue to that very thing.
Okay, so I'm just wondering, how would you know that's the interpretation? Like, what leads you to that?
Because the geometry of the first three golden-ended sections of the banner are an exact match for something. And like I said, I can't say what it is. And when I discovered that, I discovered that 2.5 years ago. I went, holy cow, look at what just happened. That's this thing. And I really can't say any more. I'm sorry, I can't say any more about this.
Don't give nothing away.
Hey, Eric, I have the painting up if you want to show what I have there. Okay, so Mark, I just want to make sure I understand what you're saying is, so you think that isn't in, let's see. All right, there's mine. Anyway, so you're saying what he blocked out, these, can you see my pointer there? I don't know if you can.
Yeah, but you're using the wrong painting. This is not the right painting.
Well, what's wrong with it? That doesn't work.
It's just not the right painting. That's not, that painting was never published.
Okay, but nonetheless, so you're saying though that
there's details. There's details missing from the banner in the banner that you're showing.
Okay,
You got it overlapping the road, the South St. Augustine from the Bridge of Lions, right? Not the river there.
Yeah. This is the road in St. Aug, and then the end of it is basically.
I think that is the connection.
It happens to match exactly like right to the beach. Okay,
Yeah, that's pretty close.
Okay, so but Mark, you're saying that so this doesn't, the flag to you does not represent, let's say, an overhead or a map or something like that. It represents some other concept.
Well, it's definitely a map.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think this flag fits to a road or something else?
Absolutely, 100%.
Okay. But not this road.
No.
No,
Okay.
I don't even have it matching to a road or anything. I have it.
And your reason for that?
It's got a musical background, which I'm not going to tell anybody again about that.
The only reason you join a band is to meet women. So.
No, I've posted.
that.
I always tell people, go back on the page and search St. Augustine by me. You'll see everything I've ever found.
So Mark, again, what leads you to believe that fit that you see somewhere is proper? Let's say it's the fact I'm trying to make the connection between the Castillo and these angles. Well, no. I'm not saying where. I'm asking the rationale. Like, how do you reason that into that?
So, can anybody put the actual painting up there that has the banner, the real banner up there, not the one with the Castillo on it?
Mm-hmm.
They're the same. It was added.
No,
later.
they're not. They're not the same, and they're not the same for a reason.
Okay, the original painting though was
painting itself
showing the Castillo, right?
Just put the real painting up there with the banner up at the top.
Well, let me see if I can find that. Okay, got it. All right, I got it. Give me 1 second because I gotta get this into the Prezo.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'll put it in there for us.
Yeah, I just always had the colors are associated with music. The German, what you're chasing with the German ferry in St. Augustine is music. And that's the cross and sword that connects to Roanoke, the Lost Colony play, Green, all that. The German composers that are mentioned in the book, you know, his opera compared to Lord of the Rings, because Mount Mordor is mentioned, It's a lot of detail work, but basically, Lord of the Rings was a ripoff of a Richard Wagner opera. So you're looking for another German besides Henry Flagler that migrated and eventually ended up in St. Augustine and died there. And
What?
his association to his direct association to what Mark was talking about earlier for the 1965 celebration. He was also there doing a lot of work.
His name was Hugo Ohms,
That's right.
and he was part of the St. Augustine Symphony.
Okay, Eric, it's coming in now.
But that was a lot of work that I had to do in St. Augustine.
Oh.
Okay, so Mark, can you zoom up on that?
I don't know if I can.
Well, okay, that's good enough. If you
I think
notice,
Eric might be able to. I don't think I can. Sorry.
Yeah, give me a second. No.
So you want to zoom into the flag, Mark?
yep.
All right. Sorry. Give me one more second. It's you have to present a slideshow, and so I have to go and change the slideshow rather than just put something.
All right. Well, we could just talk about. I mean, there's really not a lot. I've never really found a lot in the painting.
Well, there's
People think it
enough.
says St. Augustine and the flowers.
There's
Is a map, and the dig spot is in the painting, in my opinion.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go.
The map, it's not like that anymore. It changed.
Yeah.
That's the way something used to look.
Hey, Eric, Douglas didn't have a chance to talk, and I apologize for that. Douglas, can you talk to now?
Yeah, I'm good. Let's go. So
Do your thing.
I look at it a lot different than all of you actually. I get the clues you get from the book. I see the pro book thing. It does work. But let me just go to the verse because I keep it really simple, like super simple. Also, can you see this? Everybody go to Fort Montanza. Everybody go look at Fort Montanza because it's a big rock with that flag in the middle, just like in the painting. There it is.
You talking about Fort Matanza?
Look at that.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the thing is, it's not next to Fort Montanza. That's crazy. You know what I mean? It's not like on the island. You can't do that. The end of the flag is is a snake. It's on Fort Montanza is on Rattlesnake Island. So what I believe is actually on the other side where the Welcome Center is, but farther away from the Welcome Center to a spot that is a park. It's the closest park to Fort Montanza, but it wasn't a park in 81. In 81, it was a part of the Welcome Center's trail. It's part of that. Now they opened up a park in 2010, but the spot is still there. So the way I do it is first chapter. First chapter is the making of St. Augustine. The spot where the cask is basically 15 feet away from where that exactly happened, on the other side of Fort Montanza. So that's the first chapter. Let me see these other. Let me get to the thing. Also, I believe that's Don Quixote on top. It does stand for Menendez too, but I believe that's Don Quixote. And he did it off of Picasso's 1950 something Don Quixote. If you'll see that the other guy is small, just like the big rock and the small rock. So I believe a lot of these puzzles have books to them. Just like Roanoke, people think have the Wizard of Oz and whatnot. So I believe that's Don Quixote's. And Mark's not here. I don't know where he went. But he's not the only trained artist that went to school. You're back, Mark. You're not the only trained artist that went to school.
Yeah.
I'm also trained. I won several awards as well when I was younger.
And that helps you interpret the paintings.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because JJP at the meeting was talking about technical stuff, and I was right there with him. You know what I mean? Brush strokes, all that kind of stuff.
We're fortunate to have
the
that.
stuff that he learned, just like Mark.
Yeah.
We learned the stuff that he learned. You know what I mean? We studied the same artists he studied. You know, that's what you do. So let me get to the verse. I'm just going to go right down the verse and read the whole thing to you, like in my thing. The first chapter, that's the making of St. Augustine. We're going to the exact spot 15 feet away from where it happened. All right. It's in a small park. Nobody's ever there. It used to be on part of the trail, so you would have been covered. Okay. So written in water, that's also talking about the making of St. Augustine, because the ship crashed, the French ship crashed, and that's the only reason St. Augustine exists right now, is because they got on there. So with men with wind rose, the Spanish that were holding Fort Montanza their morale was dead. They weren't going to win, and then suddenly the wind rose and crashed those things, crashed those boats behind bending branches. That's the over the trail is all those bending branches that they have in Florida. You've seen them. They got those ones near the fort, the Fountain of Youth as well. The same kind of trees.
They're swept over.
And it says a green picket fence. So that park is bordered by a huge green foliage and trees. You can't see through it to see that park. There's like an opening to come in on the road. And it says green picket fence. So everybody's like, oh, it's got to be a fence. But if you look at the word picket, another definition for picket is a group of soldiers. Okay? So basically, this tall fence was blocking this group of soldiers. Okay? And the thing is, what happened there is they executed a bunch of soldiers, the Spanish, right there behind that picket fence. That there's a piece of rock that says they got killed here, right there. So, and then at a base of the tall tree, you got to find a tree over there, of course. You can still hear the honking. It's not only near the road, but Fort Montanza is a bird sanctuary. Shell, limestone, silver, salt, that's a beach. All that stuff is over there. Fort Montanza is made out of it, and so is the Welcome Center. Stars move by day. That means stars at night are gone by day. Okay? Sails pass by night. You have to take a boat over to Fort Montanza, and it gets closed at night. Okay? Even in darkness, like moonlight and teardrops, over the tall grass, years past rain falls. Okay, so even in darkness, so it's a bad thing. It's called a massacre. You know what I mean? Like moonlight and teardrops. You know what I mean? Tears. It all talking about that. Over the tall grass, which is there's tall grass over there. Years past, rains fall. So it happened years ago, and the French rain, fell. Okay. You won't see there is no other huge giant piece of rock with a flag sticking out of the middle than Fort Montanza. Okay, and if you go there, you'll see these large clouds, just like the clouds in this thing, are always over Fort Montanza if it's a nice day. Florida's got some of the greatest clouds. I used to live there.
And then they've been dumping rain on us for over a week.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, ridiculous.
So Douglas, you're saying, I was fiddling with this stuff, so I couldn't hear the first part. So you're saying it's up near Fort
Montanza. It's across in the little park that nobody goes to.
Okay. All right.
But it wasn't a park. It wasn't a park in '81. People are going to be like, "Oh, the sign says 2010." That's when they renovated it, and it says that on the thing. Mr. George Ward, when I was a rookie, I mistakenly told him about this, and he went there and made a video to make me look stupid, and said that fucking area didn't. Sorry, I cursed. That area didn't exist, right? And that area has existed since the Indians were there. Just because they renovated a park, see, he missed the thing, you know. Just because somebody bought and renovated the park, that doesn't mean anything. But the one thing is, the spot where I think the cask is remained the same. They have a concrete circle around it because they used to have the piece of rock that said it happened here, there, and they moved it. If you look behind that spot, there is a body of water right before the green fence, and it simulates that spot perfectly. There's water, there's a rock, you know what I mean, and there's a bigger rock over on the other side that used to be piece of a the fort and stuff. They were doing stuff. So there's a big rock, there's a little rock. It's in a circle. It's in a circle just like in the image. Everything fits, and it's right underneath the jewel is right underneath these trees. Also, if you're at Fort Montanza and you look over at the Welcome Center, you'll see a flag, the same flag. So you see the flag twice. It's 2 times you're seeing these things. The fairy clues come in 2s. All right, so that's how I see. Also, there are simple math equations in these things. There could be. There's also in the verse sometimes. It's like a riddle. First chapter. That's 1. Your number is 1. Fort Montanza is on the A1A. 1, right? So JJP was also talking about, in Fenway, in Boston, he thought it was Fenway, but Byron picked a substitute thing, right? So Fort Montanza's in the A1A. So is the Castillo.
Yep.
I found these in every single puzzle. These easy math things that lead you to the number where the address is.
And then that's also the Dixie Highway. So
yeah, I found them in all 3 found ones first, right? And then I matched them to 6 more. And they all have the numbers that correlate to the address where it's at. It doesn't tell you the name, except it does in some of them, that Cleveland Liberty thing, right? They said the bell was stand for Liberty, correct? So over in Charleston, the lion stands for King. It's in other ones. King Street, right across from White Point Gardens. The same clues he said in the meetup that they followed a template. So these things are similar. Even if they get harder, they're similar. They didn't have time to mess around and make a whole bunch of different kinds. So that's where I'm at. So
yeah, I mean, they use most of the same clues for all the puzzles. They just did not use the same clues for all the puzzles.
German Ferry.
That would defeat the purpose of doing 12 puzzles.
German Ferry, in my opinion, there's a St. Augustine in Germany.
Yes, there is.
And art-wise, this is done in Picasso's style. The Don Quixote matches his 1953 Don Quixote, and the way he uses perspective is the way that Picasso used perspective when he painted. See, in the Houston one, that's Dali, because Dali uses a different kind of perspective, and a lot of these are hooked up to artists. Some of them are hooked up to, like, he said, like the King Kong guy and the Space Bandits thing. So they're not all hooked up to famous artists, but many of them are. New York is, Charleston is, St. Augustine is.
And there's usually a fairy connection there too.
Bad.
Hey, Douglas, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
All right, so like Cleveland, not really a journey puzzle, right? It was all contained in like 20 feet or something, right? I mean, and then you've got others that are like Boston. So in this one, where do you start and where do you finish for yours?
Okay, so you're at the Welcome Center, and you'll be at the spot in like 3 minutes.
Okay, so you think you start down at the fort?
No, across from the fort.
Yeah, but I mean, in that look, so you're not starting up in St. Aug in the historic.
No, I don't believe in huge journeys. I don't like that, because I don't see that. I can see where you could see that, though. I do. Yeah. I see where people could say that, like to say like, oh, the Chicago Water Tower wasn't right next to the thing, right? So you have to walk. But in my opinion, that's a riddle right there. You look at the Chicago Water Tower, and Grant Park has 3 fountains that honor the Great Lakes, Lake Michigan. That and the water tower pulls water from Lake Michigan. It's a riddle. It's not just like the Terminal Tower. The Terminal Tower in Cleveland is a clue to get to the park, because back in JJP was over there, the Terminal Tower had an art that was dedicated to an art radio show. So the art in the museum is hooked up right to the Cleveland Gardens. So it's a clue. You don't have to start. You can start far away if you want, but I'd rather just get to the park.
Said at the meetup that I think he said pretty much the stuff in the paintings is stuff you see when you're there.
Well, yeah.
It might not be.
Yeah, but you don't see the water tower from where you get in Chicago.
Yeah, but
you know what I mean?
Some of the clues are going to be to just the city. You know, that would have been, if you like for Cleveland and Rob and his friends, like, even if they weren't in Cleveland but familiar enough with Cleveland, go, that's the water tower. That's, that's Chicago. I mean, not Cleveland, Chicago. And
well, it's also the
city, because that's the damn water tower.
Well, also that other fountain is right across the street, and that one honors the Great Lakes, just like the fountains inside Grant Park. It's across the street. So like
narrow down the area until you're
so you don't have to start at the Chicago Water Tower. You could start right across the street at that other fountain. See?
Yeah. Well, it's like Mark thinks. Mark thinks in the painting that it's an iceberg. It could be that. It could simply be a boulder in a park. The palm tree
flag. So we discussed the flag has to be there.
Yeah, the base of a tall tree, palm tree, like that's just so incredibly vague. It's not really referencing that kind of. Hey, maybe the palm tree in the painting could just be a clue to Florida. That's something that Florida pretty much uses in all their logos, but you can also find them in Texas and California too. So it's like, it's just a palm tree. You're looking for coastal area, but there's a lot of people that think they're looking for the base of a palm tree. And I said, that would be an absolute impossibility. You can't go dig up around palm trees, and there's way too many of them to even bother. How many of them are there and are gone?
Oh, all of them.
What's the tall reference? What does Byron mean when he says tall? Is that taller than me?
But the verse doesn't say there's anything buried at the base of a tall tree. It just says at the base of a tall tree. There's 5 different prepositions, starting lines in this verse. And
I mean, is that some kind of deception?
There.
Or is that tree or a tree not the kind of tree you're thinking of? That's probably
the thing is, like,
more
at
likely.
the base of a tree, the rock that says that the Fort Matanzas thing is at the base of a tree. It's on the ground. So it doesn't mean it has to be the dig spot, but it's got to be somewhere over there. Just like First Mark said that, it might not point exactly. You know what I mean? It probably actually does. I just haven't decoded it. But I would look at the base of the tree and probably be a little bit away from it, looking at the image.
The only challenge I'd have, Douglas, with your reasoning, and I have an idea. You guys know what it is, and this speaks to, and I think, Mark, we should debate the purple circle if you'd like. Oh, the sound effects.
Nice.
So no, debate in a very humane, courteous way. Is it the only way we're going to get to these things is by taking an idea and putting it on a pedestal and taking a sledgehammer to it, and the right ideas will stand up to that sledgehammer. In fact, it'll bounce off and they'll get stronger. Okay, and that's why if you're not willing to put an idea out there, let me ask you this: like, how many times has somebody dug somebody else's? It happens here and there. Jason, wasn't really his solve and all that. But look, I think so. Anyway, you got to put them out there. Is my whole thing. But there's got to be rigor. Like, we've got to take these things and freaking try to trash them. Because if you're on a bad idea and you're stuck on it, you have nothing left to give. like you're there, and even though there's a better idea, right? So I think just philosophically, what you're doing here, Eric, is awesome because we get to exchange ideas, and like maybe I'm doubtful now on mine, and yours looks a little better. And that's, I think, how we get to this. It's not by sitting there and hanging on to our, our solves and being, I think this is it. Right? You got to get it out there to test it, in my opinion. But could we go back to the slides? I think, Mark, you so right, is that big enough for you there?
Perfect. It's perfect.
Okay.
So notice in Mark Strosiak, you've heard me say this before.
Yes.
There
I
is,
just had a drink.
if you count the number of segments of the banner, there's 8 of them. But the 8 isn't exactly what you think. And notice,
Okay.
so the first 3 the first one is the red one with the purple circle on it. Okay.
Can you guys see my pointer, by the way, or no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
So the biggest section of the banner is red. That's a clue. The next 2 are blue. That's another clue.
Okay.
Then you'll notice the 4th one starts and ends with golden ends.
Okay.
See that?
So you're talking, this is like 1 o'clock from the tail of the horse.
Yes.
Yeah, that orange. Yeah. Okay.
So just where the end of this third one, the third one is blue. The end of that one is gold.
Yep.
And then it goes, let's just say it's going straight across to another gold rectangle, right?
And there's blue in between.
Yes. Yes. So go from
And there's
gold
a darker section as well. So it goes gold, gold, brown, blue.
I'm only dealing with the 2 golden ends. And then if you go from that golden end, there's another golden end that is like a little, it's attached to some blue.
Yeah.
And then you have a blue section that kind of goes like this.
Yeah, it's a 90-degree turn.
It's a 90-degree, well, yeah, kind of. And then there's another 90-degree turn. So there, and on that, and the last one, it's a very small segment, right? And the segments are gold on either end. You get that? I kind of wish you had your pointer.
Yeah, I'm using it, but it's not. Eric might be able to.
Can your pointer work?
Can you draw on it?
You know what?
Are you have drawing tools where you can draw on top of this presentation or no?
No. It's just allowing me to go to the next slide is all.
Okay,
Yeah.
so those last 2, the narrowest or the shortest of all the segments, has golden ends. Okay. So I said I wasn't going to give you
Golden Age. No,
I wasn't going to give you an end, but St. Augustine, every street in historic St. Augustine, both north and south of King Street, has yellow or gold curbs. And you're not supposed to park on gold curbs. Okay? So that clue right there says you're on a curb.
Okay.
And there's other clues that I'm not going to tell you about. But then the last part is, as Douglas says, is a serpent or a snake. And,
That's right.
And a lady, Karen Webb, the other day, Eric, she posted on your site that she calls it an asp.
Yep.
So the end of it is a snake. Okay.
It's
So
snakes on the cask. That's the clue I use.
there's a snake on the cask.
That's where the dragon. That's where the mythology of the dragon. The top of the cask is that's St. Augustine. The dragons come from snakes.
So the 5 segments that are that start with the golden ends and end with the golden ends are the first 5 segments of a traverse board reading, and the first 3 are the last 3 of the traverse board. So there's 8 total bearings and speeds that you record on a traverse board, and it gives you a very specific clue. Does it tell you where the cask is buried? No. It gives you a very specific set of clues. And the clues have to do what you can find in this book. As does the tombstone of Jerry Palms and his brother Russell. Very distinct clues that tell you how to solve this puzzle. And none of them are dig here clues, but they lead to a dig here clue.
So I guess the question I had then on the flag, it's so prominent, right? And clearly in the printed version, right, they covered this up, right? They covered up the Castillo.
Well, but not
This
the whole
is-
thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
But
this
so-
is one of the locations where Pound Car goes. He said that in the media. You need to cover that up because people are going to go straight there. I think this is.
So, all right. So I think that's important, right? It's like that's
Yeah,
if
stay away
so.
from the
what's so this tells you. So Douglas, this is again. I'm not speaking to you personally. I'm talking about your idea. If this was just hey a mark, oh boy, right? So if they're covering it up.
I got that. I wish I
boy.
had like a ding ding like.
How about like a Family Feud? You know,
There's always tension between Mark and Douglas if no one knows. And we're like,
I think we're good. I think we're good.
you guys.
All right. So
you guys
anyway,
are-
so
you
if
guys are
this
different
was
states.
if this was just a clue, like saying, "Hey, be in St. Augustine," they wouldn't have to cover it up. So you have to. I think you have to use that kind of logic. You got to put yourself in the shoes of the creators. And now, so they're sitting there looking at this painting, right? And Byron's like, "No effing way." And so they have to cover it up. If it's a secondary or tertiary or some just like, "Hey, be in St. Augustine," I don't think so. Why would you need to go through and go over top of JJP? I mean, that as an artist, Douglas, like any changes they made to these paintings, that was a big deal because you're basically what you're telling the guy is, "Hey, I'm going over top of this beautiful piece of artwork." Okay, so I think that's
he talked about they did that too.
yeah, and so that's a big deal. That's not.
Byron wanted to add this, and John said, "No, man, that'll give too much away." And then John said, "I added something," and Byron goes, "No."
So this tells you the fact that they covered it up tells you it's really important, and more than likely it was too much information. So your solve got to involve the Castillo, but it's unlikely he's going to just draw this thing that's so obvious as the Castillo de Seven. It's not there. It doesn't make any sense that JJP and the way he covers and masks things, there's no way he's going to like give you the exact shape. And then, like you said, everybody goes there. It doesn't make sense for how that guy's brain operated. And
a lot of this stuff.
I didn't say it's at the Castillo.
So difficult that he was hoping nobody would find anything for decades, which is exactly where we're at. It's like what Mark talked about, all that Mendez history. How many people are really gonna do the work to get their fair remuneration? So to say, or put the work in.
If you know Teddy,
I question everything in this book now. I don't think there's an exact X where the cask is. Even when you get there, you're going to be just like the guys in Chicago, digging holes all over the damn place.
So is the blue circle down there with the star in it? Is that the gem?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is. I was just pulling that up my phone if everybody could see that. That's what I think.
Okay, so let me
Our
pose
flag.
something to you guys. I'm gonna give you some of my secret sauce, and then I'll shut up. So I want you to look.
I got more, so
I want you to.
I ain't done.
Want you to.
So,
I'm gonna give
keep
you some
going.
secret sauce on how we find these things. Okay.
Okay.
And if you use this, then like invite me to and you find a box, invite me to the show. I'd love to see it. So I want you to look at, which speaks to the flag, and as the artist, this guy has a mastery and a vision and a visualization that is otherworldly. He's not going to make a mistake. Okay. Number one, people talk about, oh, he made a mistake showing a shadow. No. Okay. This guy is an absolute genius. He's otherworldly.
Yeah, it's on purpose.
So I want you to look at the stones that are very near this, just to the upper left. Do you see how angular those are? He also has some very organic shapes. So I'm telling you that this thing is near a building. It's near some man-made shape, because look at how angular that's a building or something. Now the one next to it, higher, it's more in the shadow. So it's similar, but it's a little more rounded. But that lighter color, and it's got kind of an S on it, that to me is a man-made structure, and you better have something man-made close to this thing, if that is indeed. So what you want to do in these paintings when you're interpreting them, you want to look for these man-made objects, these angles. That represents, I think, something man-made. It's not organic. He's very competent and can certainly represent something organically when he wants to. Look at all these other rocks and stones. They're very organic. That one is not. That is your clue that's going to help you find this place. And you should be looking for that in other paintings as well. I can tell you it's part of the reason I'm at Battery Lancaster in San Francisco, because I'm able to orient myself based on figuring out what is that shape. It's a man-made object. Well, what man-made object is it? That is not organic. That is man-made. And I think it represents maybe some building or the roof line or something.
I agree, though. I agree with you.
Also, the circle they use to cover, with my theory of Spanish German, the purple circle is a wheel that's just like the one in Milwaukee, which is the primary ferry there is going to be German. I think that also exists in a lot of the paintings. Imageries in one, like it was like the Rusk Ali Street connection to the African painting of the girl floating like a butterfly. Connected
Being
Houston.
like a bee.
Yeah. So when you find some clue in some city and you say, what's this person or this event have to do about, and it says British, just kind of walk over to the Roanoke painting and see if you see any imagery in the painting that would connect and show that British ferry is also connected to that painting too, in the 2s or 4s or 6s or however many you need. Because even in St. Augustine, so I got the African is represented. You got Spanish, German, African, British, and French. There's one more that I didn't look for because they're going to be in pairs. So we know the French were there, the British were there, the Spanish were there. There's African connection with Martin Luther King, but I think the real African connection was back. Slaves first came here in Jamestown, but St. Augustine, because it was under Spanish rule at the time, slaves actually fled to St. Augustine because the Spanish governor didn't allow slavery. So that, I think that's the biggest, and St. Augustine was known for that. So I thought that was very interesting. So
Eric, I don't know what
you're
talking about, because Pedro was given 500 slave contracts by the king to come and help settle St. Augustine. So what you just said, I don't think is accurate.
No. They weren't. I don't think these were people that not necessarily were slaves fleeing something. These were just people that could have been enslaved out of the British colonies.
The real slave story in St. Augustine is Fort Mose. It was the first free slave colony in North America, and that pissed the hell out of the British, and that's the reason why they kept coming and destroying St. Augustine.
Yeah.
Fort Mose is kind of critical here. I don't think it's part of the puzzle, but so Mark, you were just talking about. I think you were talking about those.
You guys keep going. I'll come right back.
Circle, right?
I'm sorry. Say it again, Mark.
Were you talking about the elements that have the red circle on them right now?
Yeah. I mean, this is my solve is.
Because those are very critical. They're not buildings for me, but nonetheless very critical.
Yeah. And so you've got chips to play on this thing. Okay, you were handicapping, and this is super important. Now, I don't know if that's a gem. I think it is. It's a teardrop shape.
It's
that
a
makes
sapphire.
sense.
It's a star sapphire.
Yeah. So I think that's it. And so what can I discern? There's all kinds of stuff going on. Very organic. Are those roads? Are they? I have no idea. But I know this. That little guy up there in the red circle is different. And I would tell you, I think it's man-made. So you want to put some chips on that this thing is certainly within eyesight of a building. It would appear to me a building. And there's nothing really else around it. Everything else is very organic. So what's interesting about this, if you believe, and by the way, because I'm doing an image match to get here, that in and of itself is very risky. And I absolutely. I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth. I'm saying, don't do image matches. They're risky. Okay. But this one is different because it's so prominent. And it means.
So Mark, Douglas has got something he's trying to get to us. So Douglas, what is that?
The Welcome Center is shaped like a teardrop.
There's going to be many teardrops around, right? I'm
not saying
the
Welcome Center.
Wait. You don't have the right one, but.
All right. Listen. All right. It's shaped like a teardrop. All right. Now, if you look at the, it won't come up anymore. You saw it though. It's shaped like a teardrop. It's shaped. Now, if you look at the rock, you'll see that cut thing into it. That looks like a bird, right?
Yeah, the blackbird, the big blackbird.
Yeah, that thing, right? So if you look where the cask is, from that cut blackbird thing is can I get to you? Is where the cask is inside a circle. It's above it, just like in the image. Teardrops. The moonlight above teardrops, it's a circle. It's the same shape as the circle that's up there because the circle on the flag is imperfect. So is this one. If you look at the size and the shape, it will be exactly the same. The cask is in the exact middle. Is it a coincidence?
Is that circle a driveway, a road?
No, that's the park. Okay. That's the little park that it's in.
I think you have a very clear oval. And I think you've got a very clear circle. So I don't see that as a match myself. But so Douglas, I think that the issue you have
it's crazy. It's crazy how you ask for a rock with a tree with a flag in it, and then when I give it to you, it's not good. You see, you're the one. You're the one that's doing what you like. You talk about how you know what I mean. You don't change your mind. You don't do this. I've changed my mind several times over all the years. This is where I stopped because the investigation is done.
I think it's close. I think it's close.
You know what I'm saying?
I don't think you're wrong.
If we put a list up, I guarantee you I'll have more checks than you on what's checked off. Yeah, guaranteed.
Maybe. But I'm just giving you honest feedback on what you're saying is a match, and I think it's not.
And you asked for a building, right? You said it's near a building, right? It's near the Welcome Center, which is made of the same rocks as Fort Montanza. There's a big rock across the water. There's a little rock across the water. The Welcome Center. Welcome Center is small. Fort Montanza is big. It simulates the image. It simulates it. It's the same thing.
Yeah, but see, everybody's got their theories. And I just go, did y'all find this in the book? That's the way I look.
Yes, actually, I listened to you. I listened to your stuff. That's why I got the German ferries of St. Augustine. I could probably fit more to it. New York, I got all the ferries you listed because I listened to you.
Says, It
I
never
listen to
stops
you.
until you have a cask.
My
and
theory is based on your theory, Eric. But you didn't know it though.
I just think
I just love how we go to all these different places. Everybody's got a different take. And
I
some
wish
of this
that
stuff,
we
I
could do
go,
this in
"Ooh,
front of
that is
JJP, and he picks somebody, and then move on. You know what I mean? There should be something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, because we're not here just to tell, and I get that all the time. They're like, "You're telling people." I said, "No, I'm telling people what I find in the book and how it's
Yeah.
relevant. I'm not telling you you got to go there. But what I do
Yeah.
tell people is if you're not using the fairies and you're not using the book, that old garbage, and that's exactly what it is, garbage that they've
Yeah.
been
Oh, I
doing
use
for
them.
years, that you just painting and poem. There's the painting, the poem, and the book. You've got to have
Yeah.
all three.
Yeah.
I mean,
I
they
hear
won't
you.
write all this stuff for no reason. And if the book words were unimportant, he would not have hired the two guys he did. They were they're hiding stuff in the words, just like JJP's hiding stuff in the painting. And I know JJP got when you can draw and illustrate as well as he does, and it's all the illustrators and the paintings and the painter of the book. That's exactly what Byron needed. I need you to hide this, even though I think Palancar hides stuff way too well. He goes, "Yeah, I know I know it's like the bee of Boston." It's like,
Well,
yeah,
he's a
you
surrealist,
but
so
how
that's what they do.
know the bubble's supposed to
Yeah.
be an O? So basically, the T is obvious. The S is backwards. That's obvious. Everybody kind of thought the B, just because it looked weird. It's not a normal holder of a globe. But yeah, the other two letters that you would definitely need. How are you supposed to know that a spear is an O and a bubble's an O? Pretty much stuff like that. But you do see there is a lot of stuff, and it's like with Chicago. There was that's something I found a couple years ago. There's a story of Houston and a story of Chicago that shares the word flatulence, and it's with the drinking. But in one story, it's in Latin. The other story, it's in English. But you're going through, and I'm like, wait a minute. He's already used this word flatulence. Now here it is again. It's just a spelling, but that simple word, I was like, wait. Are these two? Where did I find? And I remember it took me weeks to find out where I originally read that word. And I've read that book front to back now 16 times. And I'm not reading it again. But I said, wait, where did I read the word flatulence before? But I remembered, it was about drinking. The drinker was that drinking association directly with Grant. For people that don't know, was Chicago. Grant was a total drunk. And when you look in the Leprechaun Man, the pouring drinks, the who was F. Scott Fitzgerald is mentioned. And then they're
Grant
all
was the best functioning drunk ever.
All drinkers. This is the association to Grant. If you're originally reading that story and Chicago hadn't been found, and you had a good idea, it's Chicago, and I don't know where I'm at. You go, who the hell was, in this area of the park here? Oh, Ulysses Grant. Yeah, he was a total drunk. Then if you do more research, you go, oh, and he was a Scotsman. If you had the proper ferry. So you use this association of the book. And it's basically, if you find something in the book or in the puzzle or in the painting or in the normal cities we use, first thing to do is check and see. It's like the Booth, the Edwin and Edwina Booth. Okay, so there's a African fairy connection to that, and there's a British fairy connection to that. And what I found is Edwin and Edwina, named after him, they were both named after Edwin Forrest, the actor, who was an actor that worked with Brutus Booth, who was the father of John Wilkes Booth. He already had a son in London, British Fairy, so that second African British for Charleston. And he was married. I think his son was John Booth. But it was
why
from
insert that? Why insert that in the verse there, though?
Well,
Even if that's a connection, that's I think this is what we got to think about. Is like he's showing us that Edwin and Edwina,
oh yeah, it is a connection.
very sort of late in the verse, and we're kind of getting towards where the box should be. Why insert them there? And so I question, even though you have a
I
good
don't.
connection.
There's nothing to the order. I think that would be
I
another
think there is.
technique to make it harder. But it's a walking path. Yeah, but let's have them. The third part of the walking path. Put that first. Byron was really. And he told
I don't
Powell
think so.
that when Liberty got changed to MLK. Good, that makes it harder. Now you always say harder when it's already hard. He's not referencing something easy to harder. But what Brutus did, Brutus Booth, who was the dad, he eloped from London with a flower girl. And I'm assuming she was already pregnant. They came to Charleston, and that's where Edwin Booth was born. And Edwin Booth, he named after Edwin Forrest, who he had worked with. There's a lot of theater in that Charleston thing.
I'm not disputing that, Eric. I think like there's a reason he put that in there where he did. There's so few words in the verses, it really matters. It really matters. And so just a random fact or something that connects, I'm not buying that generally. That there's a reason it's there. It's helping us get to the box. And so if I can't find a good way, then even though you're right, there's this seemingly cool connection.
Edwina
I'm not sure that's the right interpretation.
You have to figure out who him is. Edwin Forrest, he pretty much has nothing to do with Charleston. He may have come to there, but the Booths were all actors. So was Brutus Booth, the father.
So red flag for me.
Hey, are we talking about Charleston now? Mark, tell us about your Patriots Point thing, and then I'll go. I'll go.
Well, I actually, this is just me. I would love to sink our teeth into the painting a bit more and that here. But no, I don't, I'm going to go, just so you guys know, I'll make the announcement. I'm going to go back to Patriots Point, and anybody who wants to come in and join our little party, if we happen to find it, you're like part of the team. So if there's 20 people that want to show up, you're all part of the team. But I'm going to go back there, and I'm going to do another very, very thorough investigation of the area that I like.
Yeah. You can't leave that stone unturned. You got if you abandon that, it'd be in the back of your head for the rest of your life. You got to go check it out, and you got to be able to confirm it. I found it or dismiss it.
Yeah. Well, we hit that area hard
many times.
We hit it hard with the GPR. So I'm having the GPR guy come back out, but I'm basically going to probe the out of the area. But like a lot of areas, it very easily, if it was there, very easily could not be because they've had, done stuff there. Yeah. But in any case, it's an open invitation. I think I'm going to come out like the weekend of October 4th. And
Pound Card talked about a lot of these. You could be in the right spot. It could have been found 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're just going, why are in Chicago, they dug and they couldn't find it.
Yeah.
So obviously, Byron said, "Oh, I'm surprised you didn't find it." I think Byron was hinting to them that there was something in the book you missed. I think all these are on a line from a point on a line of direction using the clock and a compass.
It's a needle in the haystack, no matter how even if you're within 10, if you're in the 10 by 10 box, you're talking a massive amount of effort to get that thing. And
that's 300 square feet if you dig down 3 feet too.
Yeah, how many rocks and stuff, right? You guys have probed. You can hit if you're down 2 feet and you hit a little stone like this big, it sounds like a box. You're like, that's it.
Yep.
And then you go an inch over. You go an inch over, and now you don't hit it. And so anyway, it's a
I've hit stuff. I've hit stuff in 4-inch jumps, and then go right back to probing again, and there's nothing there. And I'm like, I don't know what in the hell I was just hitting, but I'm like, Okay, let me come over a couple inches. Oh, I'm
Hey,
still
you guys
hitting.
need to get the auger on the screw driver,
Yeah.
the power drill.
Oh,
I got
a
I got the auger on the power drill. You'll drill a hole in 20 seconds,
Yeah, it's great.
about a
It's
foot.
I got a
But
buddy.
you're still gonna have to dig it out if you get to it.
He used the bore scope, and he sees something. I was like, dude, you can't even make out what that is. You see
With
some
what,
yellow.
Eric?
You see some.
Oh, with the camera?
Yeah, he ran a, but nothing's clear. It's just blurry. You know,
Yeah.
I looked in the bore scopes, and they were like, nah, you get garbage all over the front by the time it gets where you wanted to go.
Mm.
One guy
So I
says,
had a guy. I'm
Go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. Well, just a guy, he said, get a PVC tube and poke that thing down and then
yeah,
slide it into there. So you're not, the camera isn't hitting the dirt, right? You
but
can kind of clear it.
they're not going to be. The deepest one out there is probably going to be the one on the beach at Roanoke Island. Hopefully he, that 2.5, 3 feet. He might just be giving you a zone that he put them, but two of the found three weren't even. The top of them weren't even. One was like 10, 12 inches. The other was like 15.
Now, all of those, though, I would argue to you, were in even like the baseball field, right? That's pretty compacted. The sandy spots, if you've dug in sand, just a minute, Dave. If you've dug in sand, and this is one of the things that I do think he likes to be near water, where it tends to be sandier. I mean, you're talking like to dig into soil is an 8 out of 10, maybe. When you're digging in sand, it's like a 2. You can dig and move a lot of sandy soil, regular old soil, especially if it's got rocks and all. I mean, you're talking a major effort.
No, I mean, here in Florida, once you get about a foot and a half, you're in the sand anyway. So it's like, it's easy to dig holes out here. You got to get to the grass and, tree roots if you got, trees in close proximity where you're digging.
Hey, Eric, can we change the subject? Can we change the subject back to St. Augustine since that was the title of tonight's broadcast?
We sure can.
So I have a question for everybody. Has anybody looked at movies for clues?
I have.
No.
I don't like obscure picture chasing or no personal things or finding books from back in the day. It's all there for you when you get there. You don't need anything else besides the image and verse when you get there. Even though everything else got you there, when you get
Doing
there,
homework.
all you need is
I concur with Douglas. But research, absolutely.
I
get those
I get California. There's some imagery of Clint Eastwood in the book, and I think Yul Brynner.
Yul Brynner's a man.
Connection to LA and Hollywood.
So Eastwood's in the book, and he's got a fistful of dollars.
Yep.
And that movie was made in 1964. For a few dollars more was made in 1965, and in 66 was The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. That movie is 100% a clue in the St. Augustine puzzle. 100%.
Good movie.
Yeah. And Eastwood would be a huge clue in San Francisco because of Harry Callahan, Dirty Harry movies that all came out and were all smash hits in the 70s.
So remember,
in your opinion, Mark, do you need the movie to figure it out? In your opinion, or is that just a nice thing?
It's location.
Okay.
I found.
So that's a good question. So I'll talk about The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. There are several scenes in that movie that tie directly in with places in St. Augustine, but the absolute perfect clue is at the very end of the movie. And if you haven't seen the movie, I'll just describe it to you. The end of the movie is a treasure hunt movie. That's what
Yep.
we're doing, right? They're looking for $200,000 in Confederate gold. That's what they're looking for. And in the movie, the ugly is given the clue, or is told where. He's told that it's a cemetery, and he's given the name of the cemetery. It's called Sad Hill Cemetery. And the guy that tells him that dies a few moments later after he's told the good the name of the grave where the gold is buried at Sad Hill Cemetery. He didn't tell him the name of the cemetery, just the name of the grave. And a few minutes later in the movie, the ugly and the good are in a carriage that they're driving themselves, and the ugly says to the good, "So only you know your half of the secret." I mean, that can't be a better clue for a treasure hunt book called The Secret. And then towards the very end of the movie, they he tells him, the good tells the ugly that the grave is marked by a guy by the name of Arch Stanton. And so they go, the ugly finds Arch Stanton, and the gold's not there. And where is the gold? It's in the grave marked unknown next to Arch Stanton. And when I saw that, I saw this movie 30 years ago and 20 years ago, but I saw it recently, a year ago. And when I heard that, I went, holy cow, it makes so much sense now. Because when you go to the National Cemetery, where there are absolutely clues that get you there, and clues that tell you where the cask is buried. And in fact, the National Cemetery has the dig here clue. But you have to find all the clues in the cemetery that lead you to that clue. 100% in the puzzle. I'm not going
So
to
the
tell you.
National Cemetery in St. Augustine?
Yes, it's next to the Mission. It's the most beautiful place in St. Augustine.
Yeah. Well, he does take you into the National Cemetery in SF, I would argue. So maybe you're onto something there. Here's the only thing I have with that, Mark, is that God, you gotta know the movie. And was he really asking us to?
You have to watch it. And the movie
Well, I
was
know
made,
that's.
and the
I
movie
think
was
that's the
made in
problem.
1966.
Yeah, in '82, a lot of people would have been familiar with that movie too.
So remember, the whole thing starts with years pass. And Mark, you weren't here when we started, but years past means to me January 1st, totally a clue, and anniversaries. Anniversaries of what? Of famous events and dates of death. And there are dates of death all over St. Augustine. And
Yeah.
Byron used those to tell us the exact spot where the cask is buried. 100%.
Again, this is not a knock on what you're doing. I think it's just risky to have a movie that one would need to watch and pay attention to then be able to solve the puzzle. I think to me that's not something I would ever do, but maybe you're right.
Now, let me add this to this, because I know I've read this. There's one celebrity that is the most known for having a vacation home in St. Augustine over any other. And this would date back to prior to the book's release. And that person is Clint Eastwood, who still today has a vacation, like a getaway home. Fernandina, back in the day, this used to be like known as the Rat Pack area. This is where, north of Jacksonville, where all the celebrities would come to get the hell away from Hollywood and any place that, would go looking. But I remember I asked a guy down there I was talking to, and he said, I don't remember when that was, but someone mentioned Stars Move by Day is probably like Tom Hanks has a private home in St. Augustine. Leonardo DiCaprio was there in St. Augustine before he went to film Titanic. That's where he left from. There's a private airfield. I know Harrison Ford frequents this area from Ponte Vedra all the way down Ponte Vedra and Club area. But that guy said, what celebrity is basically the one, and I've actually read it online too. Celebrity you're most likely to see in St. Augustine is going to be Clint Eastwood. And they said that was like in the springtime. So St. Augustine, Eastwood, go back. He's in the book, San Francisco. That would have been probably the case in the early 80s too. Now internationally, a lot of these celebrities, they jump on planes and go to, they're just as famous in other countries. Where they want to go is to some small damn town where, I've picked up the author. He lives in Fernandina. Grissom, John Grissom.
Yeah.
People know he's there because he's the only house that's got a gate, but he, he's a very cool dude. He told me he just moved up there so nobody messes with him.
Well, a total non-secret story is Derek Jeter owns a house in Davis Shores.
Yep.
And he's leased his house to Tom Brady.
And you look at the St. Augustine Airport, you see some very high-end Lear jets out there. I'm talking about some $25, $30 million Lear jets. And those usually ain't locals.
Both of those guys are University of Michigan guys, by the way. And I actually, believe it or not, I worked a summer with Brady up in Ann Arbor before he graduated. So it wasn't like we were buddies.
That's fun. That's fun.
That's my little brush with Tom, but
everybody I've ever talked to that met him said Tom Brady's the nicest guy in the world. He talks to people, and he doesn't try to avoid people. One guy said he's on the elevator with him, and he's like, "Are you Tom Brady?" And he said he just started talking to him. It's like,
super nice. So let's just for a second, I want to throw this out there because I think it's really important. And this is how I try to consider it. Could be wrong. You think about, okay, Mark, you're going to make a puzzle in St. Aug, and Douglas, you're in New York, and Eric, you're up in Jacksonville. I'm here in Denver, and so I'm thinking about, okay, what do I want to show people? How do I want to put this? So I was it Douglas that mentioned, like, you begin it with the end in mind, right? So you think about how these puzzles come together. He's not going to start with the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then try to find a good place, right? If anything, he's going to sort of know probably where he wants to go and work back, right?
What's that?
So your movement, Mark,
is that? I'm throwing up some comments.
Okay. I was like, what is that? What's going on?
Yeah, that's Charleston. All right, so you got to really think about this in terms of how do you use things like a movie or the fairies or the stories and the illustrations to get to the box. I understand there could be all these connections like that. For me, I'm trying to zero in on just those things that are going to help me find the box. Okay.
Yeah, but you don't know what those are, Mark. You don't know what those are because you're not taking into account the entire puzzle.
So I'm asking you to think about. So he's going to pick a spot in St. Augustine, right?
Right.
And Douglas and stuff. So now he's gonna work backwards from there to cool locations. It's very unlikely he says, I'm going to start at the Castillo de San Marcos and let's see where can I go from here. And he might hit a dead end. He might not have a good place. So he has to start with the end, right? So I think that's important to think about in terms of a box location and working backwards from there. And what clues would be, I would argue to you, again, you could be right. I don't know. You could be right. He doesn't need that movie to go from the spot he selects to the start, wherever that is, whether it's close or far.
I didn't say he did. I didn't say he did. So let me say this because you weren't there at the beginning. I believe Byron, first and foremost, beyond a cask. Byron is trying to teach us American history.
Yep.
Because
Yep.
because we
Yep,
don't
absolutely.
know American history. We don't know it.
The book is not fiction. If
Right.
everybody looks at that, it's not
So-
fiction and it's not for kids.
So what Byron is doing in St. Augustine, which is the oldest place in America, he is taking the time to illustrate the various epics in St. Augustine. St. Augustine is almost 500 years old. It's twice as old as America.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of history there to cover. There's the
Yeah.
first Spanish period. There's the British period, the second
Sure.
Spanish period where the Menorcans showed up. There's the U.S. territorial point in time. And there's the Civil War. There is the Spanish-American War, which is huge in this puzzle, huge. And
Yep.
the events that took place in 1924 that we just celebrated the 100th anniversary for were huge in this puzzle.
So is that in conflict to what I'm saying, or?
Well, you're just looking for a box. I'm not looking for a box right now. I'm learning the history of St. Augustine, and it's in the learning of St. Augustine that we find the critical fine resolution clues to find the box. Your thing about the banner, here's what I think that you've said. I see a shape that when I put the shape on a map, it makes it matches the road that leads to where the anchor is. And I know you're not on the anchor, but we're looking for something that's this big. And the clues that you have told us about could be pointing to a parking lot the size of a football field.
Well,
You need
I mean,
clues
he
that
talked.
are going to tell you it's right here, and that's what I've done. I
Okay,
think I know the exact
maybe you're right.
And,
But what I'm talking about is the practical.
I
I'm
mean,
not saying you
he's not
could be
saying
right.
a
I'm just saying
negative way, because some of this stuff is like incredibly. If it's that vague, you could take it anywhere with anything.
Yeah, and you could spend the
Yeah,
rest of your life sticking.
I think that's
sticking
what Mark's
probes
trying to
through it.
say.
well, this is one.
Byron says a little digging is your task. Well, a little digging means two things. You don't need to dig a 10-foot square area. That takes a lot of energy and a lot of time. And today it's impossible.
Yep.
The little digging to me is dig for clues. And he's given us so many clues. There's over 100 images in the painting that I've used to solve this thing. 100.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark, all I'm saying is, in terms of creating these things and understanding, it's reverse engineering it, right? So what I'm talking about is he's going to pick a spot.
The treasure hunt book is exactly that. You start
and
at
work,
the back and you
right?
go. Yeah,
so I don't think what you're saying or what I'm saying is in conflict here, because the stops he's going to make along the way or the stories are going, like in St. Augustine, he's got like hundreds of things versus other cities. So all I'm saying is that, so we need to think about that, I think, in order to get to the right place, because we're doing the opposite. We're starting in a place and trying to work towards it, but it has to make sense. So what I'm saying is, what information and what stories is he looking to tell us in the course of this operation of going from the end and working back to the front? It has nothing to do with anything other than, I think, landmarks and the history that you're talking about. Okay, so that's why for me, I don't go there. Maybe there is a nice connection there. Now, I will say, though, that these steps along the way, oftentimes, the way you get certainty about them is you do have to research. You have to know this history that you're talking about, okay? That's what then you say, boom, yeah, boy, this makes a lot of sense. So I'm not discounting that methodology. I think that's the way you do it. In this instance, for this puzzle, St. Aug, it's special in that this image, this imagery that we have is so unique. It's so up at the top and in the front. It's telling us, boy, if you can like figure this flag out, you're probably really close.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a question.
That's it.
You think that the flag is important, that the banner is important. I do too.
Has
But
to
we have entirely different interpretations. You tell me who you think the horse rider is, because that person is just as important as the banner.
Very important.
Love that one.
You
So
know,
who is that?
Let's talk
well-
about specifics. The horse rider.
Sure.
That's awesome.
And
Mark.
Mark,
I actually,
Mark, put your thing back up on
There's
the
a lot
screen.
of clues there. There's a
yeah.
lot of clues.
So and guys, I have to boogie. But so there's a couple things, right? JJP. It's a painting. It's his, and we know this. And Douglas, you know this for sure because of your background.
Yeah.
He is showing us 2D, 3D, overhead, side views, and maybe a person or something. He's able.
In
I don't know how this guy
perspective.
does this.
Also,
He's able to combine all this stuff together. So it is I would argue, it looks to me like the Conquistador, it has these multiple layer of meanings that he's able to wrap into one thing. And we're sitting here for 40 years trying to sort this thing out. In his mind, it's perfectly clear. So it represents a lot of things. Clearly, it's important. Now, I think it's Olson, Laura Olson, is it? Who's grandfather and the whole anchor and all that. So she's down where I am. She's great. But she was able to show like, yeah, I think there's some real strong map images, map fits to the Conquistador. So there's a story behind it and it could have deeper meaning. For me, it's like, hey, if it's a map, then I'm focusing on a map because that's going to help me get to the box. If it's a story about Conquistador and all that, you probably come across that in the course of researching all this. I personally am not super interested in that. I'm trying to figure out how's this thing oriented as a map, and the feet are pointing to the box probably as well. So that's my approach to it.
But you didn't answer the question. Who is the horse rider? I mean, if you're sticking a probe in the ground and you don't know who the horse rider is, then how can you possibly believe that where you're putting the probe is a right place without knowing that one major thing?
If I have a visual match to it that I really like, meaning mostly maps, right? When I talk about image matches, I'm talking like, well, I see the shape of this arch in it. No, I'm looking for map images. I think he does a lot of map overlays. So yes, I'm looking at the terrain, trying to see how he's fitting the terrain.
I mean, you're targeting a
into the
specific
painting.
thing.
So I don't
think
necessarily care about that guy in this instance. I really don't who he is.
Yeah.
Because if it's a map overlay or shows me geographic markers and things like that, that's my focus. Now, if at some point, and I derive like, here is my spot based on the way it looks from a map perspective as an overlay, and now there's some story behind it, like, hey, there was this real famous conquistador who was right there. I'm in business. Now I'm really interested in that guy, right? That's the way I would look at it. Until I need to figure who that guy is, right? I'm not super interested. I'm more interested in it from a map overlay perspective, pointing me to the box.
it's the conquistador on the horse in the painting. If people really closely look at it, one, for a Spanish soldier, he's out of uniform. He's got the correct hat. He's got the padded chest piece of a Spanish pikeman who was usually on foot and had a long spear. But he has no boots because what he really is he's an actor. And what he's wearing is tights, and that connects to the ballet and the opera and all that of the German fairy, which also will connect to Richard Wagner, his violins, and that's also part of Hugo Ohm's history. And that's also the first chapter is what Richard Wagner said. The violins were the first chapter in an orchestra in the music, play, and poem. But if you look at him, he's not wearing any boots because he's wearing tights. and that would connect him directly to the cross and sword as well. So you're
That's
looking,
odd, right?
you're looking in that direction. Yeah, I mean, it's just like someone asked me about the the ballet. There's also a ballet connection to baseball, and I said, look at the team spirits. The fairy's sitting on the baseball Monty Irvin's holding, and she's dressed up as a ballerina. And they're like, ballet, baseball, and I'm like, yeah, you got to do that research.
Hey guys, I'm sorry, I got a boogie.
And you know I'm live,
Hey,
right?
hey, Mark. One thing that I play with the colorization in the paintings. I think it brings out detail. Now maybe it's false detail, but I think it does. So I just wanted to let you know as I'm looking kind of at the flag blown up, it almost looks like what you're calling section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like right towards the end where there's that sharp 90-degree angle.
Yep.
It looks to me, I've played with colorization, like those are almost, they look like chain links. And I've never noticed that before. And I don't know if that's what I'm really seeing, but they kind of look like chain links.
I think, you know what? I think, especially
So
in the
I don't know what that means.
St. Augustine has the worst resolution, I think, of any of the paintings in the book. Pound Car was talking about that.
Yeah.
And I think just go to 12 Treasures and get a.
Well, no, you should go to George's house. He'll let you see it.
But that's not the painting.
The copy? Sure. Yeah.
That's not the
Just
painting.
insult him. Just insult him
not?
about it. He'll take a picture
No,
of himself
it's not
giving you the
the
finger.
painting. Even
George
George
doesn't. I thought George had the original.
no, he calls it the original. It was a pre-painting. That's not the original painting.
Get out.
It's not. The one I use all the time. I took a
It is-
picture from a first edition
What are y'all talking about?
book.
Anyway.
That's the painting.
Hey, I'm sorry. I gotta go. Great catching up with you guys. And
Just
Right,
hang
long
on,
time.
man. We've all been on here. Unless you guys want to
It's
keep
up.
going, we're at 2 hours, 12 minutes.
Let's go.
it's,
Keep
it's
going.
always fun. It's always fun.
We'll go. Hey, thanks for being with us, Mark.
Yeah.
I'll pull you out of
Happy
here.
hunting. Let me know if you want to come and join a little party in Charleston. I'll be there.
Do a live stream so I can tell you. I can laugh when you don't find it.
Oh man.
Don't
Let's sink
lie.
that boat.
You know what? I promise. As much bad mouthing as you do, I've got a seat right next to the captain's chair on the Patriots Point ship.
Hey, I got a seat for
I
you
put
too,
your
buddy.
name on it. It says
I think it's real
Douglas
cool
right there.
that people that
I
don't
got
know,
a seat for you too.
Mark's going the Patriots
It's all
Point,
good.
and they've given him permission to look, which I think is really awesome.
Yeah.
Like I
This is
said,
going to
you
be.
got to get in there, and you gotta figure out if that's the place.
It took me like 3 months to get permission, but I have official permission to go in there.
You can dig.
I got
Yeah, they're going to dig probe
Nice.
PPR and all that.
and by the way, this area is actually it's part of the Vietnam experience at Patriots Point. So you have to pay to get in there. So there's literally a guard hut that's manned 24/7. So that is kind of the cool thing is nobody's going to really go in there and snake this away. But anyway, that's the spot. So we're going to be
At
able
least
to
you'll already
go in
be
and-
sad when you can't find it. You'll be in the Vietnam thing.
Most of them probably
I've
aren't
been
there.
to Charleston 6 times, and I didn't find
You'll
it
be
either.
depressed.
Last time I thought I was going to have it, and I said,
Hey, putting holes in the ground is always fun. You guys know that. No matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
good.
I wish I could do
All right,
it.
Mark. All right, Mark.
All right,
Have
guys.
fun.
Adios. See ya.
Well, we'll see.
He gets to go dig his spot, and I've done that. Now I'm like, damn, I gotta go. I come home and I go just like this. Here we go again.
So
My
Douglas,
buddy's
who
like,
do
you didn't find it? I'm
who do
like,
you
no,
think
I missed something.
Douglas,
Yes,
who
sir.
do you think the horse rider is?
It's Don Quixote, and it stands also for Menendez. But it's Don Quixote because he ain't even dressed right. You know what I mean?
Well, you got aspects of them.
I agree with both of those, but it's also somebody
you.
else.
Well, yeah. It could stand. He's a surrealist. It could stand for a bunch of stuff. So that's true. You know.
Yeah,
So
'cause I mean, multiple meetings of visual clues. Yeah, the guy on the horse is just another one. A little bit of Don Quixote. Yeah.
You want to know who I
Bit of
think the other
Mendez,
person
yeah.
is?
Who's that?
who was it?
It's Abraham Lincoln. 100% Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Well, that would
can
make
you-
sense what the
Can
Pixie
you
did.
put that image up on the screen? I know
Uh,
Mark is gone.
no, I don't see anything. You got to open another box.
So remember, the horse rider is wearing a Morion helmet, right?
Yep.
And in the helmet, there's a blue sapphire. It's a small version of the blue sapphire, right?
Yeah.
But the blue sapphire is not in the middle of the side. It's more towards the back. Okay. And the verse line that says behind bending branches goes with this clue. And it goes with what you were talking about a few minutes ago about the Booths. John Wilkes Booth shot Abraham Lincoln in the head where that blue sapphire is in the Morion helmet. Behind bending branches, Lincoln was sitting in a rocking chair. And what makes a rocking chair rock are the bending branches that are called rockers. And if you'll notice, the horse rider is looking down. Lincoln was in the mezzanine looking down at the stage when he got shot in the head by Booth.
Watching him play.
And if you look, the horse rider's left arm is in the shape of a 7. The right two rear legs of the horse are in the same color as the 7. And the horse rider himself has his 2 feet dangling down. So you have a 7, a 2, and a 2. Lincoln died the next day at 7:22. Lincoln's Gettysburg Address has 272 words in it. And I learned this just recently, and which ties into the event that took place 100 years ago last month. Pedro Menendez was eventually buried in Avalis, Spain, in a church where his family was. He was there for 63 or 4 years, and then they had to move him out of the way into a side aisle while they built a dome above the church. So they wanted to move him temporarily out of the way, and he was there temporarily for 272 years. Same number of words in the Gettysburg Address. And the
That's
Gettysburg,
not too temporary.
huh?
That's not too temporary.
No, it's not. That's a good point. So all that is leading me back to the National Cemetery. And here's a question for you guys. I give tours at the cemetery all the time, and I ask these questions. What must be in every national cemetery in the United States? 2 things. And don't say dead people or tombstones.
Yeah, you got my answers.
2 things must be in every national cemetery.
Ooh.
Stars moved by day,
Flag.
flagstaff, and I just told you,
Veterans.
Right?
the Gettysburg Address. Every national cemetery has a plaque of the Gettysburg Address.
Did not know that.
Every one. So
Wow.
in 1909, which was the 100th anniversary of Lincoln, the Veterans Administration, I think, decided that every national cemetery should have a plaque of the Gettysburg Address. They made 6 of them, and St. Augustine got one of the first 86, and it's still there today. It's right next to the 3 Coquina pyramids. Have you been there, Eric?
The National Cemetery.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Douglas, have you been there?
No, I missed it.
Well, so the next time you go to your spot, you ought to stop there because it is a beautiful, beautiful place. And most people don't even know it's there because most people are concerned about St. George Street and all the shops and stuff. That
Oh, they see the guard headquarters there, and they don't go down that street.
Right.
But it's
there's a
there's,
ton
like
of
I said, there's
there.
more stuff to see there.
There is.
I think they think they're going back into a neighborhood, so they don't really want to venture down there. But you are allowed to stop.
Well, yeah, I think you're right. There's one gentleman, I forget his name. His spot is at the very end of Marine Street, where there used to be a minor league baseball field. There were 2 minor league baseball fields in St. Augustine, and they're both gone.
Yeah. Well, they tear stuff up. One of the oldest golf courses was down there on the north end of St. Augustine, and that's
The
turning
Ponce de Leon.
that into a housing community.
Right.
And the old Ponce de Leon Lodge and Convention Center, which they let shut down and tear down. And
I played the Ponce several times while it was up. It was a beautiful golf course. It was actually 2 different golf courses. One was in inland and one was out there on a marsh. It was beautiful.
yeah, it is super popular back in the day, and they just I remember doing that research on that. That's one place I chased Hugo Ohms to because his that 14 by 7 by 14 foot panel he did of Ponce de Leon's Landing in Florida was in there when they were about to bulldoze the place, and somebody with the city council got them to go down there and save it. And
That's
I went there. I actually thought it was on that property on the lake there for a while because there was a couple big boulders right out there on the lake. The building was gone; it was all overgrown. But
I think they might have put that in the courthouse.
Oh, the mural.
I think I've heard that. I could be wrong, but
It was in the visitors center at first when that place first opened.
yeah.
And I went in there, and one of the guys at the city said, no, they moved it and put it in storage. So it's a paneled mural. If people don't, you can see a picture of it on Google.
Here's a little story for you. Those murals were painted on 1/4-inch plywood because Ohms, at least as far as the cathedral is concerned, and so he probably did this for all of them. The cathedral is made out of coquina, and he learned that the outside atmosphere tends to leach through the coquina walls, and painting on the walls just wouldn't work. The paint would get destroyed. So he actually bought probably aircraft grade 1/4-inch plywood, treated it on both sides, and painted the mural in 4x8 sections, and then he came up with a way of fixing them all together so they all look like one mural. But they're all.
I was always wondering why he made it so big. I guess make a statement. I guess, but
if you go to the cathedral, there's like 12 or more of his murals still there.
Yeah. Hell, he designed all of them. He just didn't paint all of them. They're the Leitner, the cafeteria of the Flagler College. He's got a lot of history there too. He was actually their first arts teacher when they opened an art department there. Plus, he played for the St. Augustine Community Orchestra. That's still a trip I got to make down there. I want to see if there's any records about that. But he died in 1990. But he was a German immigrant in New York. New York, he had a fine art school, and I actually talked to a guy that had him as a professor. And it's funny that him and Richard Wagner got a lot of things in common because they're both grumpy and not nice people. And the guy goes, "Oh, he was never nice to anybody." But going around the country doing work, he it just said he passed through St. Augustine and just said, I'm gonna retire here. And his sister was here also. I think she died prior to him. I never was able to locate her, but Hugo Ohms was cremated and his ashes were spread on her grave in St. Augustine.
Oh,
So he's of course he was there for the prior to the 1965 anniversary, and he was hired to be there. So that
well,
may have, I don't know if he was actually living here at that time, but he was there in 65 and then he died in St. Augustine in 1990.
well, what's interesting is that he was hired by Bishop Hurley to do all that work, and Holmes was a Lutheran. He wasn't Catholic, which is and
money's money.
And one more interesting little thing, he was asked to do the design work for the remodel of the cathedral. So he chose colors and fabrics and whatever. And one of the things that he decided was that the ceiling of the cathedral and the ceiling of the shrine of Our Lady of La Leche at the Mission should be the exact same color. So when you go there to both of those rooms, those ceilings are exactly the same color.
There's a question came in. Has anyone considered Tallahassee? No.
No,
No.
no, sorry.
It is St. Augustine 100%.
Yep, that's true.
Continue your
There's
search from there.
there's 9 maps in the painting that show places in St. Augustine. If there was only one, you could argue, well, that's just a coincidence, but there's 9.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking the other day, like looking and like Charleston paintings, African. You got the black girl, you got the African lion, Africa. There you go. You got a conquistador with the obvious helmet. I think the helmet symbolism in there is just you go, hey, the conquistadors are pretty much the only people that wore that. The palm trees. There's your Spanish painting. The Statue of Liberty's face in New York. There's New York.
Yeah.
The Asian immigration. And like what we were talking about earlier is, this is supposed to be a fiction children's book. The only thing really fictional in this book is the Fairies Association, but the Fairies are the actual immigration.
It's just it's like a parallel universe.
So yeah, it's not the book. The book is not a fairy tale, and it's not fiction. And when you get in there, and you realize you got to research all this nonfiction to figure out where you need to go. And then what Mark was talking about earlier, doing the path. You got a page in the back of the book you could have filled out, sent to Byron. You never had to put a probe in the ground or leave your couch.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why, for the anti-book people, that you need the book. That's the only way you're going to do it. And you're going to have encyclopedia, dictionary, some tools, but you don't really need to go to the city. And unfortunately, we can't do that anymore. But Byron gave, and I don't know, that's all if Byron, if that was true. But he asked you to be exact and precise in the back of the book if you were writing that in, which Rob claimed. I think, Rob said he filled this out when he sent this to Byron with help because they couldn't find the box. And they said, we know we're in the right place. So, he did that properly. And he basically said, here, I'll help you. I'll send you a photograph. Yeah. But, you gotta pair the painting and poem. You got to figure out the city. There's steps you have to take. And for people that's new to the hunt, most of the work's been done up to that point. I think they're all pretty much the cities are correct. The paintings and poems are paired properly. And if you, some people like to take a painting in a different verse, and I'm like, okay, and knock yourself out. Those people
that want to clear the whole deck, those people that want to clear the whole thing. We can't do that. That would be disastrous to clear the whole thing and do the cities over. That would be terrible. A lot of people ask about that. Like, let's throw them out and put them on
Yeah.
different cities. That would be
We
terrible.
got all
to say.
kinds of questions here to get it
Clues
is
in all the puzzles that tell you where the city is. And
Yeah.
you don't have a cask in your hand, but that doesn't mean you haven't figured out where the city is.
okay.
Yeah.
This person that was mentioning Tallahassee is saying the figure itself in the St. Augustine painting is the FSU mascot. He's referring to Chief Osceola. It is not even close.
No.
Uh,
We're Seminole fans in this house.
that's
And
the
that's
wrong.
not him.
That's the wrong indigenous tribe of Florida, anyway. That's the Seminole.
But hang on a second. Hang on. Osceola is part of St. Augustine history.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
I know that that's quite obvious a Spanish person with on that horse.
But to that person's point, Osceola is a part of the St. Augustine story, and
Technically, so yes. Technically.
and that leads you to the Castillo, but not as a dig here spot. In fact, I was going to say this: the circle, the purple circle that is over what we all believe is the Castillo, doesn't cover up 5 things: the 4 bastions and the courtyard. And that's a clue that says, hey, go to the courtyard, go into the Castillo and learn what's in there. And when you do, the whole thing down at the National Cemetery starts making a lot more sense.
And he's
Yeah.
also saying, is the boy in the
I do that part at home, and then I
Rockefeller?
go. I do that part at home, and then I get to where I'm going. You know, a lot of research went into where I got. It's not like, I mean, I talk it like I'm just like talking about it, but 7 years worth of research went into that. So, you know,
Well,
it's also
somebody else-
made a coquina shells.
You got to start over and understand how to wed the verse yourself. Yeah, I do agree. You know, you have to learn, you know, the process. There's a process to this book, and you need to figure part of that process. You need to figure out how it is the book. How did you wed the painting in a verse? How do you do it? You got to start with that.
Well,
So
when
you
you
start
look
with
you look
understanding
at the
how it
painting,
works.
the painting screams St. Augustine. It just
Yeah,
does,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And,
A lot of it's
and
visual.
and because of the acrostic of the
Saloy.
first characters, Saloy, so
Yeah.
there's your tie-in with painting 6 and verse 9.
Yeah.
You don't have to redo that. You don't have to reinvent that wheel. And I'm only talking about St. Augustine because I don't do any other puzzles. Just
And
that
I'll say,
Yeah, but
Fort
I
Montanza
think
is one of the
there were
only other
people-
places that Saloy's at. Saloy's not at a lot of places historically, but he was at Fort Montanza.
yeah. He was in that St. Augustine area. Period. I mean, a lot of people dismiss the letters of his name being in the margin of the verse, and I'm like,
That's crazy.
That's
How would
part of how
that's
you
too much of a
hide.
coincidence.
you know, it's like, come on,
That's
It's,
crazy.
yeah, that's it.
It just happened to be like that. I don't think so. You know what I mean?
All right, guys. So we're over 2.5 hours now, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna do
All
another
right.
one next week.
All
Yeah,
right,
because
brother. Thank you.
St. Augustine, there's so much stuff to discuss. This puzzle's got a lot of information. I think this is one of the harder ones. Palancar said the first easy ones were found. St. Augustine's one of the harder ones, in my opinion. There's a lot of stuff you have to go through. It's a lot of book work. So we're going to have a whole bunch of other stuff to discuss.
Okay.
We'll try to do another one if you guys want to come join next Wednesday. I'd like to do 2 a month on some of these because, I mean, we just, you see how fast time flies.
Yeah.
You know, when
I'll
we're
be here.
sitting- And there's tons of stuff we have not gone over. So thanks everybody for watching.
Hey, nice to meet you, Mark.
All right, Douglas.
Yeah, Mark, thanks for being on the show, and we'll
Good luck
see
with
you.
your thing.
Thank you. Hey, thanks,
Yeah.
Eric.
Yeah, buddy. Hope it all stays very well for you, bro.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I'm all right. I'm right. Oh, the book biography's coming out soon, so I got a
Alright.
publishing deal. So we're gonna do that.
You want to pitch your site?
Hey, go to DCCR on the Facebook. Learn the truth. Learn what Mark doesn't know. Not that Mark. I like that Mark. All right. Good night.
All right.
All right. Good night, guys. Bye bye.
Bye, guys.